Well, good morning. Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. In our series on senior nutrition, I've decided I'm going to make a few videos on just side dishes. Things that you can make ahead, put in your freezer, and give yourself a little variety on a day-to-day basis. And that's what this is. This is 3-cheese creamed spinach. And tonight I made 5 of these, 1 for tonight and 4 for the freezer. Before we start cooking, I hope you'll give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And if you'll click the little bell at the top right, you'll get a notice when I post new videos. Now let's make something wonderful. So this is early in the month and I bought fresh vegetables, so I want to use them up pretty quickly. And this is 2.5 bags of fresh spinach, and I've got some provolone cheese and some cheddar cheese and some Parmesan cheese. You can use any cheeses you want for this, but you do want the Parmesan or Romano. I've got an onion. This is my minced garlic. You know, I switched over to this minced garlic a while back because dealing with garlic hurts my hands. And this is butter. And this is heavy whipping cream. I'm going to use about half a pint. And salt and pepper. This is pretty simple. That's all that's in this. And I ended up even not using the pepper. The spinach was on sale, by the way, less than $1 a bag. And I've done a little prep here. This was about 3 ounces of cheddar, maybe closer to 4 maybe. And this was about 2 to 3 ounces of Parmesan. And then I've got slices of provolone over there. This is wonderful with Gruyere, by the way, but I don't have any. So I'm going to slice this onion. I cleaned it, cut it in half, and now I'm going to slice it so that it makes long strands. And we're going to cook it, but we're not going to caramelize it. We're just going to cook it until it's kind of golden. I just recently sharpened my knife. And I now cut fairly slowly and carefully. I don't want to hurt my hands, don't want to get cut. But I'll separate these a little bit. I'm going to wash that spinach and let it be draining. And that's all the prep there is. I'm going to meet you at the stove. So here is one of my trusty Wagner skillets. It's about the same age as I am. I'm not sure. I'm melting about 3 tablespoons of that butter in here. 3 or 4, whatever you want. And I'm going to put the onions in. I love using these old skillets. It shows that us old folks are not useless. This is a really great skillet. So I don't want this on high heat. I want it on pretty low. So when I melted the butter, I turned the heat down just a bit. And I didn't separate these enough, because I'm going to cook these on a low heat just until they start to turn golden. I don't want them caramelized. I just want them softened, wilted, so they'll get a little bit of a golden color. I'm going to put a little salt on top. That was probably about a half teaspoonful, not a whole lot, but that helps them wilt. And I'll stir them a couple of times until they start getting nice and golden. And then I'll come back. So after about 5 minutes, this is what we have. It's not limp, but it's certainly wilted a little bit. Got just a little bit of golden color there. And then we're going to start to add the spinach. And I actually had to do the spinach in 2 batches because there's a lot of it. This was almost 3 full bags. I had used a little bit out of 1. Oops, a little garlic first. That's a teaspoonful of the minced garlic, and I always get some of the juice. You know, over the years, I've not used many shortcuts, but as I get a little bit older, I do use more shortcuts. I love the minced garlic. Be sure you keep it refrigerated, by the way. It's not very expensive. It's a whole lot easier to use than the regular cloves, no peeling, no chopping, but a really great taste, just like fresh garlic. So I'm going to add this spinach, and I'm going to warn you, I have a whole lot of spinach in just one pan. And at first glance, you would think that won't all go in this pan, but it will. You just add it until the pan is really full, and you'll see I'm going to get it really full. Then you let it wilt a little, and then you add some more. Took me 3 times to get all of the spinach in this. As I said, it was almost 3 full bags. I had used a little bit out of one of the bags, but not much. So this is going to take a little piling on to get it all in. When it wilts, it wilts down to about 1/3 of what you start out with, or less. So don't despair. You can get it all. You could probably get another whole bag in there as it wilts if you want to. So I'm just piling it up, and then I'm going to sprinkle a little salt over the top. You'll notice I add the salt a little at a time in increments. I salt each layer just a little and then taste it at the end to make sure that I have enough for proper flavor and not too much. But now this is a lot of spinach. So that was probably, it may be more than half a teaspoonful, but not as much as 1. And I'm going to put a lid on this, and just, this is all on low heat. Here, that one's escaping. And I'm just going to let that wilt for 3 or 4 minutes, and I'll be back. Okay, it's been just a few minutes. I'm going to stir it up. Some of that salt's still on top. Mix some of the onions in with it. I don't want them just to stay on the bottom because I don't want them to scorch. Even though it's on low heat, if they're on the bottom and getting pressed down, they might scorch. So now I'm going to add a little bit more spinach. Just pile it on. So while I'm doing that, let's talk a little bit about convenience. As we get older, it's very easy to get discouraged from cooking whole foods, cooking from scratch. If you're at home by yourself, you may just want a pizza. And you can do that every once in a while. But as we get older, we need to find ways to make cooking from scratch, making nutritious food, easier and more convenient for us. Things like switching over to the already minced garlic. You're still eating whole foods. You're getting the wonderful flavor. You're not working your hands so much. I grated this cheese. Got to put a little more salt on there. And you know, if you need to buy grated cheese, buy grated cheese. No matter what anybody says, if it means that you eat better food, buy a little of the prep included. There's a little bit of cellulose added to grated cheese. That's not a harmful ingredient. Do what you need to do to get good food. Now this is all wilted down now. I covered it and let it simmer for about 3 minutes. There's a lot of liquid in here. So you're going to make a choice now. Depending on how you want the final product, you may want to spoon off or drain off all of that liquid or most of that liquid. I'm not going to. I like the flavor of the liquid that's in there. You know, you could drain off just part of it and keep most of the flavor. This won't be a really thick sauce, but it'll be a yummy sauce. So I've added a cup of the heavy whipping cream. You really don't want to use milk in this. You want to use cream. Not just because of the flavor and the richness, but also because the higher the fat content in your dairy products, the lower the carbohydrates. And we are working to cut the carbohydrates. I'm adding the provolone here. And you can see that I just used slices and chopped them up. Just as a little aside here, someone took the time in comments this week to berate me for talking about eating good fats as a senior and cutting down on your carbohydrates. I just refer everybody to most recent research that keeping a fair amount of fat and a low amount of carbohydrates in your diet as you get older is good for your brain. You do need some fat. A low-fat diet, non-fat products, those are all enriched with carbohydrates, and those cause inflammation. Sugar is not your friend. It never was, but as you get older, it's less your friend. The easiest research to find is Mayo Clinic keto diet. You can Google that. You can read it. But there's so much more research on this. And I'm not saying everybody needs to eat keto. I'm saying that 25% of the people over 65 in this country are diabetic. And there's a reason. And that reason is that we eat too many carbohydrates. So I'm going to taste this and check for the salt. And you know, that is so good. Got plenty of salt. Let's add the cheddar. You know, as I mentioned earlier, Gruyere is really good in this. I don't have any Gruyere. It's a little pricey. This is an inexpensive cheddar. It's really good. It's hard to beat a nice sharp cheddar in almost anything. And yes, cheese is good for you. It has good fat. It's low in carb. It's so tasty. So we're just going to stir this around a little bit. And as soon as that cheese pretty much melts, you know, it's going to be stringy. This is kind of stringy cheese. The provolone just, yeah, it's lovely. So now I'm going to put this in containers and I'm going to split it between what I'm going to eat tonight and what I'm going to put in the freezer. These are 6-ounce ramekins, and these are some pot pie freezer containers. And I'm going to use both. Now, I'll end up with 5 servings of this all together. And I'm going to start with the ramekins. And this is going to be stringy and messy. I'll just clean it up as I go. See that lovely stringy cheese? I'm going to fill up 2 of these ramekins. And you know, you don't really have to separate it out. You could just cover the top with Parmesan cheese and put the whole thing in the oven. But it's easier, not just for one, but no matter how many people you have, it's easier to serve them separately because they're still stringy and messy when you're done. Now, let's get those strings. And I'm going to eat one of these tonight, and the other I'm going to put in the freezer. Only because I want to show you 2 different ways to freeze these, just based on your preference and how much time you want to take later when you actually cook it. After storage, when you actually cook it to serve. So I want to get a good mixture of the spinach and the cheese in there. And plenty of the sauce, the juice, the sauce, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's sauce. I'm going to even those 2 out a little bit. I got 1 too full. Let me go get a fork and I'll be right back. Okay. So I'm just going to move a little bit of that over. Because you know this is going to bubble while it's cooking. I'll clean that up a little bit. I love these little ramekins, by the way. I told everybody in the groups I had an Amazon coupon, and I had been eyeing these. Mostly because, well, partly because I like to make individual servings when I'm cooking extra for freezing. But I'm probably not going to freeze a whole lot in these. I wanted them for creme brulee. And yes, if you haven't seen my keto creme brulee recipe, you should try it out. So I'm putting lots of Parmesan cheese on these. I mean, really a bunch of Parmesan cheese. I mean, for one thing, the Parmesan cheese is going to thicken up the sauce as it melts down through it. And for another, it's just good, and it gets a little crusty and a little bit crunchy. But I do need to clean up my mess here because otherwise that's going to bake on my pan. This is my Birmingham Stove and Range BS&R breakfast skillet. I got this when I got married in 1966. Got it new. My mother-in-law gave it to me. So these are ready for the oven. So no comments, please, that my oven needs cleaning. My oven always needs cleaning. So I'm showing you this so that you can see. I'm putting these under the broiler, but I've lowered the rack just a little bit so that they're not right under the broiler. That'll take 3 or 4 minutes. So quickly, I have spooned these up. This last little bit of Parmesan I'm going to put on it, but we'll put more on when we prepare them later. I'll wrap these in aluminum foil and label them. When you get ready to use them, you want to take one out, put it in the fridge the night before, let it thaw. Then bake it at about 400 for about 15 to 20 minutes, just till it's bubbly. Then stir it up because dairy tends to separate when it's been frozen. And you don't want to overcook it, so you just cook it until it's bubbly. Stir it up and then add some nice fresh Parmesan and stick it under the broiler. And it will be just like fresh. And here they are after, it was about 4 minutes under the broiler. One of these I'm going to let cool, put in a plastic bag, and then I can also reheat that in the microwave. Whichever way you want to do. This one, the Parmesan won't be crisp when you reheat it. In this method, it'll be kind of crisp when you reheat it. Whichever way is most convenient for you. And this is the final product. Yes, that's a steak. Yes, on payday I get a steak. That's my reward for being good all month. And it's good. This is a great low-carb, nutritious meal. But the video is about the spinach. Now let me mention now, if you're not eating really low-carb, you could sprinkle, before you broil them, some breadcrumbs on top of this, and you will get a really crunchy top. This is just a little crunchy from the browning Parmesan. And look at all that string. Whoops, sorry, I've lost some of my spinach. And I'm going to get those strings. This is an adventure in eating. So there you go. And oh my, this is just so good and so satisfying. All that cheese, I mean, it just feels almost decadent. And I love cheese and I love spinach. And yes, I love steak too. I hope you try this recipe. I hope you like it. And I hope to see you again tomorrow.